It happened during my senior year of high school. I was only 5'3", maybe 95 pounds soaking wet, and I lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood where nothing really bad ever seemed to happen. Most mornings, my boyfriend Derek drove me to school, but that day he said he was busy. Later, I'd find out busy meant cheating. So instead, I walked to the park down the street, the spot where a few of us girls usually waited for the school bus, but that morning I was the only one there. The park was eerily quiet. No chatter, no traffic, just the rustle of leaves in the wind. I sat on the bench, one headphone in and one out, something I always did so I could stay aware of my surroundings. After a few minutes, a black Honda pulled up along the curb. I noticed it right away. Something about it felt wrong. I tried not to make it obvious that I was watching, but my gut was screaming. A few minutes passed, then the doors opened, and two large men stepped out. They were both tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in dark clothes. One had a shaved head. The other wore a baseball cap pulled low. I grabbed my phone and quickly texted Derek. "There's a black car at the park. Two guys just got out, and they're creeping me out." No reply. So I copy-pasted the same message to my cousin Alex, who was home sleeping after his night shift. He lived with me, along with my aunt and my other cousin. Still, no response. By now, the men were walking toward me. I stood up fast and started toward the street, hoping the bus would show up any second. The driver was running late. The two men closed the distance between us, slow and deliberate. The one with the cap smiled and said, "Hey there." The other just stared, hard, unblinking. I gave them a small, polite nod, tried to seem calm. Then the first man asked, "How old are you?" I didn't answer. He tilted his head, studying me. The second man's jaw tightened, clearly irritated by my silence. They started firing off more questions, short ones, each creepier than the last. "You got a boyfriend? You live close by? You smoke? We got something good. Want to try?" I shook my head. "No, thank you." Then the quiet one, the one who'd been glaring, finally spoke. His accent was thick, maybe Eastern European, his voice deep and cold. He said, "Do you know what the black market is?" I froze. My whole body went cold. He grinned, like he was enjoying my fear. "We just came back from Russia," he added, almost bragging. I didn't say a word. My hands were shaking, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. They stepped closer, both of them. The first man said, "Come on, we'll take you to our car. You can chill with us. We got stuff to share." I shook my head again, stepping back toward the curb. "No, my bus is almost here." He laughed. "That's okay. We can drive you instead. Free ride." But then, as if the universe heard me, the yellow bus turned the corner. The timing couldn't have been closer. When the men saw it, they finally stopped approaching. Before walking away, the first man pulled a small white business card from his pocket. He handed it to me and said, "I own a car shop. Call me if you ever need anything. Maybe I'll even give you a free car." His tone was mocking, wrong, but I took the card anyway. I figured I'd need the number for the police later. They turned and hurried back to the Honda, got in, and drove off fast. As soon as the bus doors opened, I climbed on and burst into tears. All the adrenaline that had been keeping me calm drained out at once. My hands were trembling. My throat felt tight. The driver, Mrs. Torres, noticed immediately. She gently asked what happened, and between sobs, I told her everything. When she looked out the window, the car was already gone. She said she had seen the men standing near me earlier but thought I knew them, because they were standing so close. She radioed dispatch right away and told them there'd been an incident. Then she took me straight to the school office herself, refusing to leave me alone. By the time we arrived, I could barely speak without shaking. The principal and the campus security guard, both kind older men, brought me into the office and started asking for details. What kind of car? What do they look like? What exactly did they say? I gave them everything I could remember and then pulled the card out of my pocket. The principal frowned, then handed it to the security guard. "I'm going to call the number," he said. "I'll pretend to be her dad." He dialed, put it on speaker. A man answered. The second I heard his voice, I knew it was him. That same cold tone burned into my memory. The principal played along. "Hey, my daughter got your card. Said you could help me with the car." The man paused, then said flatly, "You've got the wrong number." The principal replied, "She said you run a shop. She got this from you personally." There was silence, then a click. The line went dead. They tried calling again. The phone was off. The security guard's face changed. That easygoing expression was gone. He grabbed his radio and called the police immediately. As he stepped into the hall with the principal, I overheard him whisper, "She's lucky to be alive. This is serious." When the officers arrived, they had me go through the story one more time. They believed me. Every word. One of them said something that made my stomach twist. "They were probably watching you girls for a while. They picked the one day you were alone." He said the car was likely just bait, an excuse to lure me close. I felt sick. The school tried to call my aunt, but she didn't answer. My boyfriend did. He picked me up after talking to one of the officers. The whole ride home, I cried uncontrollably. When we pulled up, my family was waiting outside. My aunt, my uncle, my grandma, even my cousins. The women were crying. The men were furious but grateful I was safe. A week later, I got called to the principal's office again. He looked both relieved and shaken. Another girl, a freshman from a nearby school, had been grabbed by two men in a black Honda outside her campus. Other students saw it happen and pulled her free before they could drive off. It was the same car, the same two men. Police arrested them that night. The officers came to the school with a lineup of photos, and I recognized them instantly. No hesitation. It was them. They'd been caught. I felt so many emotions at once. Relief, fear, anger, gratitude. They hadn't just been creeps. They were predators, waiting for the right moment. From that day on, my family made sure someone drove me to school every morning. My cousins, my aunt, even my now ex-boyfriend. And every time I passed that park, I couldn't help but think, if the bus had been 30 seconds later, I might not have made it out. I still thank God for that driver, and for the bus that came just in time. And I thank those brave kids who saved that other girl, because if not for them, those men might still be out there. I'll never forget that morning, or the sound of that man's voice. It still echoes in my head sometimes, but at least now I know they'll never hurt anyone again. This happened just a few months ago. I'm a sophomore in college, and I was heading back to my hometown for spring break. I hadn't been home in a while, and honestly, things weren't great with my family. My stepmom and I had been fighting a lot, so I decided not to stay at my dad's house the first night I got in. Instead, I figured I'd crash somewhere else just for the night until things cooled off. I remember my old friend from high school. Let's call him Ethan. He still lived in town, and we'd stayed in touch here and there. Mostly harmless check-ins and nostalgic texts. I'd stayed over at his place once before, so I knew his family had a guest room. When I called him, he answered right away, and his voice was way too excited. Ethan was always a friendly, upbeat guy, but this time, something about his tone felt different, like he was hyped about something he wasn't saying out loud. Still, he said it was totally fine if I stayed the night. So I packed up and headed over. When I got to his house, Ethan was already standing on the porch waiting for me. Big grin, jittery energy, talking fast. He greeted me with a hug and said, "Dude, it's been forever. We gotta chill tonight. Maybe smoke, play some games, just like old times." His parents were out of town for the week, so the place was quiet. Too quiet, really. I was tired from the drive, but he seemed so eager. I didn't want to be rude. We started playing Smash Brothers, ordered pizza, and after a while, he rolled a joint. I wasn't really a big smoker, but I figured, why not? We hadn't hung out in years. For the next few hours, everything seemed normal. We joked about our orchestra days, our old English teacher, the time he got detention for putting a frog in someone's locker. But as the night went on, the mood shifted. It was around 2 in the morning when Ethan started asking me strange questions. Like really strange. He leaned back, looked at me, and said, "You ever think about what it'd be like to kill someone?" I laughed awkwardly, thinking he was joking. He didn't laugh back. Then he said, "Do you think anyone would miss you if you disappeared?" That one hit wrong. The way he asked, like he wasn't being philosophical, like he was studying my reaction. He followed it up with normal questions. "How's school? You seeing anyone? How's your dad?" But my stomach was already twisting. Something about his energy was just off. It wasn't the weed. It wasn't the late hour. It was him. I mumbled something about being tired and said I was going to bed. He nodded too quickly and said, Yeah, that's cool. Guest room's downstairs next to mine. We both headed down to the basement. He went into his room, and I went into the small guest room across the hall. I brushed my teeth, changed into sweatpants, and got into bed, but my heart wouldn't calm down. The house was silent, but the silence felt heavy. About an hour later, I heard footsteps, slow, soft, pacing back and forth outside my door. Then I heard them go up the basement stairs, one step at a time, and then come back down again. The weird part, I never heard the basement door open, and it always made a loud, distinct click. He hadn't turned on any lights either, just moving around in the dark. That was when the unease turned to dread. Something was seriously wrong. I pulled out my phone and decided to look up Ethan's social media. Just to distract myself. His Instagram looked normal. So did his Facebook, but when I checked his old Twitter, I noticed a link to an inactive Tumblr account. Curiosity got the better of me, and I clicked. What I found made my blood run cold. His Tumblr was filled with graphic drawings, bodies torn apart, animals dissected, people bound and bleeding. There were links to shady websites, disturbing essays about pain, death, and control, and worse, photos of guns, knives, and axes, all taken inside his bedroom. I recognized the background instantly. The dark carpet, the wall art, the same sheets I'd seen when we walked past earlier. Then I saw a text post dated just a week earlier. It said, I wish I could find someone easy to kill like a homeless person or someone no one would miss. My throat closed up. That's when I realized what those questions had been. He wasn't just curious. He was testing me, seeing if I'd fight back, if anyone would look for me. And then it hit me. The reason he went upstairs earlier. He must have locked the main door. I had to get out. Now, I stuffed my bag with my things, quiet as I could, and grabbed my keys. There was a small window high on the wall, barely big enough to squeeze through. I climbed onto the dresser and started pulling myself up, arms shaking. Halfway out, I heard the door creak open behind me. I froze. The streetlight outside poured a faint orange glow into the room. Ethan was standing in the doorway. His face was calm, blank, but in his hand, he was holding something long and metallic. A knife. He didn't say a word, and neither did I. I yanked my legs through the window, dropped to the ground, and ran straight to my car. I didn't even look back. I drove all the way to my dad's house, crying the entire time. When I finally stopped shaking, I blocked him on everything and called the police. I gave them his Tumblr, the screenshots, everything. But they told me, since he hadn't actually done anything, and the weapons were registered under his dad, there wasn't much they could do. That answer made me sick. I still sent warnings to every mutual friend we had, told them never to be alone with him. A few of them didn't believe me. Some even said I was exaggerating. But I know what I saw, and I know what he was planning. Ever since that night, I haven't looked at people the same way. It's terrifying to realize someone you laughed with in class, someone you trusted, could be hiding something that dark underneath. I don't know what Ethan's doing now, and I don't want to know. But wherever he is, I hope someone's watching him. Because I still think, if I hadn't checked that Tumblr when I did, I might not be here to tell this story. I learned something chilling about a woman who was wrapped around my childhood, and I can't stop thinking about it. Back then, I was painfully shy. The kid who clung to corners and watched other kids play from a safe distance. I just started preschool in my grandmother's church, and one morning on the playground, a woman came over to me. She introduced herself as Evelyn. She looked like any sweet grandmother, soft cardigan, kind eyes, an abundance of white curls. Evelyn volunteered at the church, watching the kids as we played. So we saw each other often. I don't remember exactly how it started. One small kindness after another, I guess. But before long, I was spending time with her in and out of school. My parents were grateful. I was the youngest of three. They both worked full-time. My brother and sister had practices and rides and homework. Having an extra pair of hands felt like a blessing. I don't remember many specifics with Evelyn. Probably ice cream, trips to the park, little errands. I do have one clear memory. She took me to her house. The only time I ever went there. She gave me a careful little tour. Sunlit living room, neat kitchen, old radio murmuring in the background. As we passed the dining room, a girl around 10 or 12 sat at the table coloring. "This is Megan," Evelyn told me. "She lives down the street. She comes over a lot." I don't know why, but a twinge of jealousy burned my chest. I'd never felt that before, like I wasn't her only special kid. That moment lodged in my mind like a pin. I never went back to Evelyn's house after that. Fast forward a couple years. I'm in first grade. I'd stopped seeing Evelyn after preschool. Honestly, I'd forgotten about her. One afternoon, my carpool dropped me at home. A plastic bag from the big box store hung from our front doorknob. Inside was a note in looping handwriting, "A gift for you from Evelyn." Up in my room, I pulled out brand new outfits, bright, adorable, exactly my size. I tried one on, spun in the mirror, excited to show my mom. When she got home, I ran downstairs to model my new clothes. But instead of smiling, my mom's face went dark. "Take them off," she snapped. "I'm returning them to Evelyn." I froze, confused, embarrassed. I put everything back in the bag and handed it to her. We never talked about it again, and Evelyn slipped out of my thoughts for years. A few years later, my sister was home from college. We wandered to Target just to waste time, tossing candles and notebooks in a cart like we had money to burn. Out of nowhere, I remember that front door bag. I laughed and asked my sister if she remembered, and if she knew why Mom was in such a foul mood that day. She stopped walking. The cart wheels squeaked to a halt. "Wait," she said, voice low. "You don't remember what Evelyn did to us?" The fluorescent lights hummed. I stared at her, shook my head, begged her to tell me. She wouldn't. "Ask Mom," she said, and pushed the cart forward. And again, I let the thought drift away. I didn't ask my mother until years later, after college classes, after goodbyes with my grandmother over lunch. As we stood in the parking lot, my grandmother mentioned a funeral coming up that weekend. She and my mom exchanged a long, heavy look. After Nana drove off, I asked who had died. My mom sighed, hands tied on the steering wheel. "Evelyn," she said. The name rang in my head like a bell. All at once I asked about that bag, about my sister's warning, about what I didn't remember. My mother told me everything, the pieces they kept away from me, so I could stay a child a little longer. At first, Evelyn truly was helpful. She picked me up, brought me snacks, played little games. She seemed generous, attentive, safe. But my grandmother, the gentlest woman alive, started hearing odd stories at church. Little comments, small inconsistencies. "She gives me a bad feeling," Nana told my dad. And coming from her, a woman who never spoke ill of anyone, that meant something. My father paid attention, but he still hoped Nana was being overly cautious. Then Evelyn changed. She became possessive, snappish with my parents, knocking on our door unannounced, demanding to see me. If I wasn't home, she grew furious, raising her voice, scolding my mom and dad. "They don't deserve you," she'd say. "Only I know how to care for you." It happened again and again until my parents told her to stop coming, or they'd call the police. So Evelyn switched tactics. Phone calls. She left voicemails for me, messages I never heard. My parents saved them for the file they'd started. In those messages, she cried and begged me to come live with her. She said my parents were cruel, that she could give me the life I deserved. When that didn't work, her messages turned to threats, calling the police, calling child services, claiming abuse that never happened. And when the calls didn't bring what she wanted, she started showing up again. She drove up and down our street, asked neighbors if I was home, even asked neighborhood kids where I played after school. More than once she parked down the block and watched the house. At first no one noticed, then neighbors started recognizing the car and warning my parents. One afternoon she came to our front door when only my brother, 12 years old, and I were home. She banged on the door, begged to see me. My brother cracked the inner door but kept the storm door locked. "She's not here," he said, even though I was asleep upstairs. Evelyn tried to force her shoulder through. My brother shoved the storm door shut and pushed her back. "The police are on their way," he told her. "Calm in that way only brave kids can be." She laughed, walked away, disappeared for a while. Then came the final straw. My mom and I were backing out of the driveway to go to a birthday party when Evelyn pulled in behind us. Blocking the car, she walked up to the window and looked right past my mother, eyes on me. "Wouldn't you rather come with me and never see your mom again?" she cooed. "I love you more than they ever will. I can give you everything." My mother snapped. She rolled the window down and unleashed years of fear and fury, told Evelyn to leave and to never come near her children again. She promised that if Evelyn ever tried anything, she would regret it, legally and loudly. Something in Mom's voice must have landed. Evelyn left. We didn't see her again, not until the day the bag appeared on our door. A quiet test balloon to slip back into my life. My mother ripped that balloon to shreds before it could rise. After that, nothing, just silence and growing years between us. Hearing all of this as an adult made my skin crawl. I wondered if I had repressed anything. Did she ever speak to me alone about leaving? Did I ever nod along, not understanding? I wondered if she searched my name on social media when I hit middle school, if she watched my posts in high school, if she checked university rosters when I moved away. My mom told me Evelyn had children, even grandchildren. So why me? What did I represent that made her fixate? A hole to fill, a story to rewrite. I'll never know. What I do know is this: my parents shielded me so well that I got to stay a kid while grown-ups did the hard, ugly work of protecting me. And my grandmother's instincts, those quiet alarms, were right all along. Evelyn is gone now. There will never be confrontations or voicemails or cars idling on our street again. But sometimes when I pass a church playground, I still see a little girl standing alone, and a white-haired woman walking toward her with a smile. A smile that looks so gentle and hides so much. Trust your grandmothers, trust your gut, and don't befriend the old woman volunteering by the swings.